we want to also look to the turbulence of the water, or how emotion or how feelings are being. But I want to ask you how the water is being represented. So generally speaking, in a card like this, water will be represented in some way. Through, in this one, we see a lot of the flow of the paint. The swords kind of appear to be dripping paint. So even though we don't have water, we have that watery feeling to the card. There's a lot to the water, and I am an intuitive reader. So one of the things that I always pay attention to is what is the unique quality that an artist is bringing to the image. The receptivity and the activity of the odd and even numbers it's not always easy to see, but generally speaking, these two cards are receptive. And so what does that mean? It means that supports the internal journey. It means that these are cards of contemplation. And yes, of course, on a mundane level, both of these cards can refer to travel, physical travel, geographic travel. So of course, every single card can have a mundane and a spiritual quality. And depending on the question that was asked, depending on the surrounding cards, that will guide you to which way to take your language around the reading. So going back to the Six of Swords, we have no vehicle in these two cards. Okay, so that we just leave the whole issue of the vehicle alone. The vehicle here is the physical body. It's the self. And in both of these cards, we have a figure that is rising in an upward direction. Here, emerging from the water, and Mallory describes this as a breath of fresh air. The Six of Swords is like coming up for a breath of fresh air. And often it's compared, and there's a comment, if you can look to the Five of Swords and ask the querent about where they may have come from. And remember that people don't necessarily move through the tarot sequentially. And while there may have been a Five of Swords kind of energy that the querent has come from, there may not have been, but it's always something that we can refer to. And so this breath of fresh air, this movement up and away, feels like it's so beautiful. It's so light. And there's a completely different energy with these two cards, for me anyway. And this is personal. I want you to know that what you see in the cards and what I see in the cards, it's perfect for the situation that you are reading for. Okay, it's not a matter of who is right and who is wrong, or who is interpreting better than the other person. This is a very unique experience. We need to lean into our intuition. We need to trust what we're feeling in the moment. The only way we're going to move through this is by getting out of the self and understanding that we need to connect with something else, something other than ourselves. This feels very Manipura chakra. It's like stepping out of the place of, well, I can do everything, like I know how to do this. And it's like, no. It's time for you to understand you could do this so much better if you spoke to a subordinate in the office, somebody who's new to the office, who's got fresh ideas. And maybe there's some wisdom from one of the senior people in where you work, and you get together and something really, really magical gets created. And this Eight of Pentacles is about that. It's about embracing what you are really good at. There is a power in letting go of what you are supposed to do, what you need to do, and doing what you know is right in your heart. And I find this card comes up when people are questioning their path. So they've been on their path for a while, perhaps in a certain career. And it's like, I came into this for the money. I came into this because it was what my family did. And all of a sudden they realize, it's a really hard decision. Money's been invested at university or college. There's perhaps family disappointment that may come up if you change careers. There may be financial consequences. You might have to give up a lot. We need to really listen to our soul, our soul's journey in this card, and to be able to commit to that. And it may not be a job that brings in as much money. It may not be a way of life that our parents wanted for us. It's about really, really listening to your heart. And you knew about this when you were a child. You probably had dreams about this. You know, that question we asked to kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? When we are doing our practices, spiritual practices, do you have practices that get the fire going and practices that are cooling and relaxing? So we don't want to practice, for example, restorative yoga only. We need the fire and the flame to get going, which can be done through certain pranayama practices. It can be done through a fiery active asana practice. You can do an uphill walk every day or a couple of days a week. And you can also do a slow meditative walk with no ups and downs and be very, very mindful, you know, looking at the plants and so forth. Maybe on your uphill walk, you have some inspiring music that keeps you going and keeps you charged, and your headphones are blaring. But while you're walking through the forest, there's no headphones. And Scott says, in my temperance card, one is silver water and the other is gold with fire. So silver represents the moon, right? The moon. And then we have the sun. And one of the things that we can bring into awareness here is that so as we move into talking about this card, we have not only the energy of the sun directly before it, but also the energy of the moon. And there is this, in order to reach this level, and yes, we don't move necessarily through the major arcana, the hero's journey, in chronological order, as the cards appear, but there is a quality. There is a quality of the moon card and the sun card to the judgment card. So just think about that. We move through the introspective karmic patterns, the things we don't want to see, the challenges of the moon card, and then move into the light of the sun, where everything is illuminated. Nothing is hidden, and that can be as challenging as the moon card. Sometimes it stirs things up. And so I feel that part of this judgment card is understanding the process of moving through the moon and the sun. And so what Scott was seeing in his card is that the energy in temperance, so those cups in temperance, have a lunar quality and a solar quality. And so this connects the energy of these two cards. To understand completions, we also need to understand that they initiate a beginning. There's a new opportunity. And so what is the relationship between the Chariot and Temperance? They both get us moving forward to a new level, to a new experience with spirit. Not all tarot card readings, of course, have spiritual interpretations. Some of them are quite mundane. But there is, if you are stuck on this card, one of the questions you can ask yourself is, what is Temperance pushing me towards? What is it encouraging me to find, to seek, to attain? So here we have three people facing towards us, and then we have three people facing towards the angel, which is almost as if these six people are in a circle. And if you relate to the energy of the circle, this very nicely leads us into the world card. There is something about we're all in this together. One of the most beautiful teachings of the judgment card, and I really see this as there's a few cards of serious leveling up in the major arcana. This is one of them. And if we can understand that our work, our our spiritual journey, our healing, let's use the word healing, I love that. Our healing is not just for ourselves. Our healing affects others in so many ways. I think it is in, it's not Mary Greer's book, it's in Rachel Pollack's book, 78 Degrees of Wisdom. She says something to the effect of, until none of us are free until all slaves are freed. She talks something about that. This is what I mean. Like we do this work for everyone. And if we, and I get this from this circle of people here. They're all with their hands raised. They are understanding and wanting to connect and feel that connection. And there is, I don't know, it's a really, really lovely card. So what is being unwrapped here is fear, for sure. The fear of spiritual enlightenment, or the fear of a new opening, a new aspect of our journey is unraveling.
These are words perhaps that we use simultaneously, not simultaneously, interchangeably in English. And maybe that is one of the issues and the confusion. It's because we get wrapped up on the lexicon, justice and judgment. Often we think about a courtroom. We think of a courtroom where justice may or may not be served, and then a judgment comes down. A judgment comes down from a judge. A judgment may come down via a jury. And whether you see corrections as samskaras, whether you see these corrections as fate or destiny, the corrections are going to happen one way or the other. And when I think about and meditate on justice, it's about the more we can become in alignment with our own patterns, our own samskaras, the more we can stay at the center of the wheel and the less painful these changes are. So justice is served by a greater divine energy, or it's served here in the three-dimensional world. Judgment to me is not about going back, it's about going forward. And so when judgment appears, the real question is, are you ready? Or do you have the courage? Do you have the courage to go forward? And I was just leafing through the Sasarai Bito, and I know I've shared this one several times. And so we have the woman who has a blanket around her, a futon probably wrapped around her. And the idea here is that it's like a cocoon. And I just read a meme this morning about this. The the caterpillar realized he wasn't going to die. He thought he was going to die and suffocate in that cocoon until magically he turned into a butterfly. And so you often see the butterfly as in the judgment card. There's this blossoming. But there's fear in blossoming. There's fear in letting go. There's fear in the vulnerability that is associated with awakening.
If we're looking at alchemy, the different subtle energies of the alchemy of the lovers and the alchemy of temperance, because there are two major cards that speak to balance. And there's a lot of cards of balance in the tarot. And these are two very, I want to say, important ones for me, especially. In the temperance card, you'll notice we have a solo figure. And to me, that is the big difference between these two cards. Where there is two in the lovers, there is one in temperance. And so I feel that the lovers, which is the first card where we see two people in the major arcana, is an opportunity for us to kind of step back and observe all of our relationships. I don't believe that the issues that are arising with our partner or with colleagues at work or with our children are so different. I think these patterns that tend to come up are very, very similar. And so there's this thing about the Lover's card that forces us to see ourselves in another. Whereas with the Temperance card, it's like we've reached this new height, where we understand that nobody except nobody externally, or nothing external is going to be a part of our transformation if we're not committed to our transformation ourselves. The energy that we experience in the Devil and the Tower is in direct proportion to our commitment to temperance. When the card takes this direction, is that there's an acknowledgement of becoming stronger together. And when plants are, I've never actually done this, but when plants come together and then they take on a different form, in these cards, I see the potential for that. But also there's this strength in leaning in together, as opposed to looking at the RWS, where we see the strength in the mountain that's between them, but there's quite a bit of separation. And there's also an aspect of letting go in leaning in like this. So if we choose to lean in, if we choose to trust, if we choose to mutually gain our strength, share our strength equally with each other, we know that we can be stronger together. There's something about the energy of the sweetness that is grounding. It slows down that frenetic energy. It reduces vata, which is so contradictory to how we view the whole idea of sweetness in North America. Sugar sends you in the opposite direction. But there's actually an alchemical principle of sweetness bringing peace, sweetness bringing calmness. And that's what I felt when I saw these two cards side by side. Okay, so if we're going to go to fives are in the middle of the minor arcana. They are as far away as we can get from the ace and the 10, right? So they're quite far away from the alpha and the omega. They're as far away from divinity as we can get in the minor arcana, the 5, right? I call these are the cards in the bridge. They're the transition from the lower 4 to the upper 4. And so I feel that one of the reasons temperance is so critical is that it's going to help us find and feel that connection. It's going to remind us that grace is close if we actively choose temperance. If you look at the way those figures are in the Marielle, it kind of looks like the yin and the yang. It's very beautiful, very beautiful. I'm wondering if the red background here was the inspiration for the Lover's card in Chris Sand's deck. I often wonder why that red is there. I know it connects it to the Devil. Both of these cards teach us about balance. One focuses on understanding that at a very deep level, if our eyes are open through our relationships. Whereas the other one invites us as a complete and perfect soul to continue the journey of balance, of temperance, of moderation through actively pursuing wellness. One of the key symbols in the Hermit card, of course, is the lantern. And so here we are at a time where reflection is necessary. And we also need to look at what the lantern represents and what the light in the lantern represents and what light in general represents, because there is an absence of light in the 9 of Swords. It is daylight in the 9 of Wands. So that's an important thing to acknowledge. We have, while they're both active cards, active suits, we do have more of a slightly, I'm going to say, yang energy in the wands than in the swords in these cards. So the light is source. The light is sun. Source means the source of our energy, the source of our universe, the source of our soul, There's lots of different levels we can go to with what that light is. Different spiritualities see the light in different parts of the body. A lot of the spiritual teachings tell us that the light lives in the heart space, so the energetic heart space, and the around here, right? So this light is something that we can sometimes forget that's there. We get lost in the external world. There's a sense of aloneness in all three of these cards. There's one single person in each card. And when we are alone, we have a tremendous opportunity to go within. It's very hard to turn within when we're with others. So guru is the dispeller of darkness. What does that mean? That means that the guru shines the light so we can see our inner light. It is, of course, important to embrace our darkness. We want to find the balance of the yin and the yang, and to live and be whole, and all of that. But if we get lost in the quagmire of the darkness, or we get lost in the external, then it's very hard to be in the light. And to be in the light means to be within. And that's very, very confusing, right? Because sometimes when we go within, we think we're dealing with shadow and stuff, but the light also is within. I want you to think about the energy of the Nine of Wands, and think about cortisol, think about adrenals, think about adrenal fatigue. This is a card often too of adrenal fatigue, and we're going to see that in the 10 of Wands as well too. But there's a sense of it's not a comfortable place. You know, when you lie down to go to sleep and your body is vibrating so much, you can't possibly relax. Now, there is a potential in the Nine of Swords. I see this card is vibrating very, very high. And these disturbances can be turned into or seen in a different way as signs, messages, light, information, connection. I feel like with the Nine of Swords, there's this, like the cup is half full, the cup is half empty kind of thing. If we would take our hands off our face, maybe cross the legs, sit up tall, take a deep breath in and out, this might be an ideal opportunity to receive a download. 9 swords, 9 thoughts, 9 messages, lots of potential for communication. Devil energy I see as Swadhisthana chakra. So Swadhisthana is second chakra. And when we are challenged with Swadhisthana, the trouble with lower chakra energies is there's so many different ways to interpret what is going on. So if we look to the card on the right, there's a loss of voice, there's a perception that there's a restriction of some kind of thought or voice. And we see something being bound as well too. The lower chakra energy could reflect anything from childhood sexual trauma or birth. I'm going to say, because we're in the womb, right? We're in the energy of the womb. So this could have something to do with that we're not even aware of, that was connected to our birth experience, how we were birthed. I mean, the range of things is just so huge. And then as we grow up, this energy could be reflected in how we are in relationship with lovers, relationship with self, relationship with people at work, and so forth. So there's been some kind of second chakra trauma. This can also impede the ability, our creativity as well too. Creativity, fertility, all kinds of things. It's such a muddy chakra. And when this card appears, I don't ever want to jump to one particular interpretation. I want to have a deep and wandering discussion with the querent. if you take the time and spend a couple hours with me, we'll explore this more deeply in January in the chakra course. But we must be very, very careful with this card and where this card is going. It is a major arcana, so it is significant, and it might also have a longer temporal time, right? The journey of the devil may represent months or a year or longer, whereas the Eight of Swords is more fleeting. Okay, so this is the Marianne Williamson quote I was talking about. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. And so the reason I was thinking of this quote was the association with Jupiter and the potential for greatness. And so here there is some hesitation to live in our greatness. So one of the common things between these two cards is that we have imposed restriction. Why have we imposed restriction? Are we afraid of being big? Have we been made little? Have we been made to feel little? In the Marielle Tarot, the 8 in the major arcana is actually justice, not strength. But it's really interesting that Marie White in her guidebook talks about this card in relationship to strength. And I think to have in the back of your mind what it takes to move onto an Eight of Cups kind of journey and to step onto that kind of journey in relationship to the energy of strength is really, really important. And then if we look to the 6 as with its connection to the Lover's card, for me, one of the most beautiful interpretations of the Lover's card is the union of the divine masculine and the divine feminine energy within ourselves. And what is the 6 of Swords journey if not a journey towards self? And I really feel the connection of this 6 card, the harmony, the peace, the quiet. To me, this feels like a very quiet card. It's very, very peaceful. And I love that Marie White chose to put an angel here. And this also, to me, speaks to the particular 6 of Swords moment, wherever we are in our life, was likely mirrored in our childhood. And to really find some compassion for the child in the boat and you as the child in the boat, and to understand that we cycle back through these journeys throughout our lifetime, and the stories are slightly different, but we keep coming back to the same lessons over and over again until we finally get it. And I think this deck really beautifully illustrates that.